Hey, viewers and viewresses, my name is John Red Strategist and welcome back to So You're Being Hunted. This episode 298 now. So, remember of course in the last episode I kind of fluffed up the Seeding Violence Challenge. My old arch nemesis here in So You're Being Hunted, the old Squire me boy, or Squire me man, he basically friggin' plugged me in the stomach with 6 of his finest shots and kind of took me out very quickly because I forgot that when he aggroes on hunters, if you're standing near him, he will also aggro on you. That's a thing that can happen in this game, and I completely forgot about it. So yeah, Seeding Violence Challenge ended at 200, I nearly said 200 episode 97. Episode 297 even. Oh man, what a friggin' palaver that was. Now of course, now we're pretty much down on the run to the 300th episode, where me and Phil will hopefully be doing a Mega Sir special, where we'll be answering, of course, more questions, doing another kind of mini Q&A. Well, I say mini Q&A, knowing us, we spend about fucking 10 minutes answering just one question. It'll end up being fucking over an hour in length, which will take an absolute mountain of time to actually upload. But, everyone's obviously going to be looking forward to that. It's going to be good. And I think, for episode 298 and to episode 299, we're just going to do podcast-style episodes, which is kind of what I'm doing right now. We're just going to talk about various things, have, our usual sort of very nice conversations and whatever else have you, because I don't see any reason in starting another challenge just yet. Not till after episode 300, then we'll get on to another challenge, I think, and that'll be fine and dandy. So of course, I've got some good little suggestions for things that, ideas that people have left me and whatever else have you. So of course, we'll do them in due course. Well, I'll do one of them rather in due course. And then, we'll have the odd other podcast-style episode where I just talk, as I normally do. So I hope you guys out there are all doing fine. Like I say, I hope you're looking forward to the 300th episode special. Should be very, very interesting, shouldn't it? Now, speaking obviously of topics of conversation, which sometimes, I love to talk about and just ramble about basically by myself for a whole episode. You know me, of course, I'm a bit of a history buff. I do like reading up on my history and things like that. And, I was kind of reading up just on the internet earlier today, actually, about a civilization which I've never really actually read about before, but which is kind of interesting. That civilization that I'm talking about was the Aztec civilization, or the Aztec Empire, which, like I say, I've never really read anything about the Aztecs before, but they're a fascinating bunch in history. So, one of the kind of principal Mesoamerican civilizations. But, it's just, I was reading a bit about, of course, how the empire was kind of organised politically. Because obviously, the Aztecs, when you hear that word, Aztec, you maybe get the idea that that was a term for a kind of singular people, or a single kind of tribe, a single kind of ethno-cultural group. But actually that's not really what the Aztec Empire was, at least from what I've read so far. From what I've read so far, the Aztec Empire was more like a kind of loosely organised empire, made up of a few different kind of Mesoamerican tribes and peoples who collectively lived in what is now Mexico. So it's not that the word Aztec refers to a kind of single group, essentially. But, of course, what the Aztecs are perhaps most remembered for, what I think everybody kind of knows them for, because I think the word is kind of, the word Aztec is almost kind of synonymous, in a manner of speaking, with this particular aspect of their culture. What they're particularly known for, of course, was human sacrifice in their kind of religious rituals, and they really took it to quite an extreme, depending on who you read, of course. Now, obviously, human sacrifice and all that wasn't kind of unique to the Aztecs. They weren't the first Mesoamerican civilization to, utilise human sacrifice. And of course, they're not the only kind of civilization in the world to have used human sacrifice in their kind of religious rituals and whatever else have you. But what was interesting about them is that, of course, they did take it to quite a level. And some of the sacrificial rituals that they used to undertake, both for animals and for humans, were really quite fucking brutal, let's put it like that way. I mean, everyone's probably heard of the classic one, which was basically where they would kind of take the sacrificial victim and they would pretty much basically make an incision through the abdomen with a knife and then pull the heart out. that was the that's the classic kind of Aztec sacrificial ritual. Yeah, pretty nasty, let's put it that way, but that's what they used to do. But I was just kind of reading up on more about their civilization, their culture, whatever else have you, because of course here's the thing, obviously the Aztec Empire lasted, I think, from what was about 1300 to 1520, there or thereabouts, 1520, 21, 1519 maybe at the earliest. And of course the people who were most kind of responsible for its downfall were obviously the Spanish conquistadors, because that was the era of the Age of Discovery, when the European states were finding the New World for the first time. You'd had Columbus obviously in 1492 or whenever it was, and then of course you had the likes of the Spanish conquistadors going in subsequent years. And obviously Hernan Cortes was the Spaniard who led the expedition that found the Aztecs. And he's mainly regarded as the principal figure who brought about the fall of the Aztec Empire. Because of course, let's put it this way, we're talking the Spanish conquistadors who, even though they didn't number very many, at least in Cortes's kind of expeditionary party, the difference between them and the massive Aztec army was that whereas the Aztec army were using clubs and spears, Hernan Cortes and his Spaniards came with freaking, muskets and early firearms and cannons. So, they used their technology to their advantage. But, obviously, so just getting back to the whole thing about, obviously, the Aztecs and ritual sacrifice, because I kind of digressed a bit there. Obviously, one thing you kind of have to remember is that because the Spaniards very much triumphed over the Aztec Empire, and they took over much of what is today Mexico, as well as other parts in South America, they very much kind of foisted their culture on the region, which obviously was, a very Roman Catholic culture. And so, of course, that old adage of history is written by the victors, you always have to kind of remember that to an extent when I think you're thinking about the Aztec Empire. Because, of course, although the Aztecs did engage, as we know, in kind of rituals that involve human sacrifice, there's archaeological evidence that they did, as well as various texts of, records of eyewitness accounts from the time, which show that they did, or rather suggest they did. So, in other words, we do have a lot of evidence that this was real and it happened. You've always got to remember that back in that day, the kind of Spaniards had every interest in basically exaggerating some of these traits and characteristics in order to basically justify what they, the fact that they were subjugating that people. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that the Aztecs were, great people who were actually innocent of all the charges that were being brought against them. But it's just that thing you have to bear in mind about history being written by the victor and all that. Because, for example, there's one kind of claim, for instance, that I can't remember what year this was supposed to have happened in, but there was an event in the history of the Aztec Empire. It was like the reconsecration of the Great Temple in Tenochtitlan. I've probably butchered that pronunciation. I think Tenochtitlan, God, I can't even say it. Tenochtitlan was the kind of capital city, I think, of the Aztec Empire for, as far as I'm aware, most of its history, if not all. And obviously, they will have had their various temples, and by the sounds of it, from what I've read, they had the Great Temple, and at one point in their history they had the reconsecration of this Great Temple, and that involved apparently masses of human sacrifice over the space of 4 days. Something like that, and there were various records that put the figure of the number of people killed during these sacrifices at something like 80,400 in just 4 days, something like that. Of course, that, I believe, is a statistic that came from primary sources written by the Spaniards at the time, and so it's one of those things maybe you have to be a little kind of wary of, because it might be exaggerated. So some historians in the 20th century have kind of disagreed with that, and they've said actually it was probably more like 4,000 people, which, granted, is still a lot of people to be killing in the space of 4 days. But so don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that the Aztecs were a lovely people by any means, but well, actually I should amend that. I'm not saying that Aztec religious beliefs and practices were good by any means, or innocent of any of the claims that have been made against them, but obviously you do just have to kind of wade through some of the exaggeration from history, of course written by the victors, as I say. But of course, so obviously everybody, like I said earlier, has heard of the classic Aztec ritual sacrifice technique of, making an incision in the abdomen with a knife or whatever, and then just pulling out the heart. And apparently they used to do it like, well, again, it's just what I've read online. So how true it is, I don't know. There may be historical sources to verify this. Then again, it could be just something that maybe is not entirely accurate, but purportedly they would pull the heart out fast enough to get it out before it technically stopped beating or palpitating. So yes, not very nice. But that was by no means the only way that apparently the Aztecs used to sacrifice their victims. They used to do things, well, I mean, some of them are pretty fucked up, but they used to do things like drowning sacrifices, burning people alive, things like that, flaying people, all kinds. It's messed up. But yeah, and of course the justification for all of this, what most historians believe was the justification rather utilised by Aztec priests, was that of course it was all done to appease gods. Because apparently in Aztec kind of cosmology, or Aztec religious belief, whatever you want to call it, there's a lot to do with kind of the gods making sacrifices in order to ensure that the earth remains fertile. So this kind of drove a lot of Aztec religious belief, and the idea was that, just as gods do that, so too do humans, or rather humans have to be prepared to make sacrifices as well, in the interest of ensuring that, the gods are appeased and that the earth continues to be nourished and fertile so they can produce good harvests and whatever else have you. So that was their kind of justification for all that. There are other proposed reasons as to why, the Aztecs really kind of went all out with their human sacrificial rituals and whatever else have you. For example, apart from the religious reasoning for their sacrifices, there's also, of course, the political reasoning that it acts as a very good deterrent for possible enemies of the Aztecs. To say, here's the thing, if you cross us and we defeat you in war, this is what's going to happen to you. Yeah, because that's the thing, apparently from what I've read, when Aztec warriors went into battle, they didn't go into battle necessarily with the primary aim of killing their opponents. They would try and capture as many of them as they could, so that then they could bring them back to be used as human sacrifices in religious rituals. Because the idea apparently was, in Aztec society, one of the principal ways that people, including ordinary people, could kind of advance in their social hierarchy was by going into what were essentially military roles, i.e. becoming warriors, and capturing people to use as sacrifices, and that was a way they could advance up the Aztec social hierarchy. So, pretty crazy. So, to that end, they used to use weapons which perhaps were designed not necessarily to kill someone outright, but perhaps to just incapacitate them, stun them, or whatever. So, apparently, I don't know what the name of this weapon is. I can't remember it, because it's got an Aztec name, and I can't quite pronounce it correctly. But one of the weapons they would use, for instance, was a type of club, which was lined with kind of these obsidian volcanic glass pieces along its edge. So that was one of their principal weapons. Obviously they also had things like the atlatl, which was basically a throwing stick that's designed so they could throw spears further, stuff like that, as well as other various kind of daggers and whatever else have you. But yes. Okay, ooh. I was just checking where he was. He's come over to hear me give my history lecture on the Aztecs here in Sir You're Being Hunted. We'll just wait for him to pass. Okay. Yes. But like I say, earlier, the Aztecs, not the first civilization in Mesoamerica to utilise human sacrifice. Like I say, they just took it to a whole other level. Because the thing is, other civilizations, like the Mayans, I believe, also did human sacrifice. The obviously previous Mesoamerican ones did as well. The Incas down in what is now Peru, I'm pretty sure they used to have human sacrifice as well. And then again, there's lots of other civilizations which have utilised human sacrificial techniques and whatever else have you. Yes, but it's one of those things which it's just interesting because, like I say, it's a period of history, and it's an aspect of history which I think lots of people, myself included, have heard so much about. Little snippets about, for example, like their religious customs and stuff like that. But of course, we've never actually, I've never actually properly read a book about their history. So maybe it's a period of history that I'd be interested in actually just reading more about, and whatever else have you. Yes. Okay, right. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to probably wrap this episode up here. I think this is a good length for a podcast-style episode. That was a good topic of conversation. Just, you can listen to me waffling on about that for a while. Well, there you go, everybody. So what we'll do is I will wrap up here, and like I say, 200 episodes... God, I nearly did it again. They said 200 in episode 99. Episode 299 will just be another podcast-style episode where I'll ramble on about whatever. Maybe I'll continue this conversation or something related to it. Who knows? So yeah, hope you'll join me for that then. If you're not doing so already, you can follow me on Facebook and Twitter. Links down below, as always. Also, there'll be a propagandist channel link down below as well if you're interested in that and you want to go see me do... I was going to say kind of anime-related content. I mean, to be honest, the direction my propagandist channel has been going in over the last few months has very much been a Girls on Panzer anime channel. Yeah. Phil always says to me, well, why don't you do more stuff on that? But to be honest, the problem with that propagandist channel is that I don't really have as much time as I would have liked to do anything with it. So I don't get videos out on it that frequently. Yeah, so... there you go. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like, comment, subscribe, all that jazz. Maybe share it with your friends on social media. That's not a choice, ladies and gentlemen. You have to do it. I'm putting the obligation on you right now. So like this video, share it with your friends on social media, or let's see now, how shall I threaten you all? I'm just trying to think of a nice good threat whilst I'm at it. Hey, actually, you know what I will do? You know what I'm going to do, ladies and gentlemen? If you don't like this video and share it with your friends on social media, I'm going to take all your intellectual property and I'm going to give it to the Chinese. There you go. Take that. That's a friggin' threat and a half, that is. Goodbye, everybody. This is where I needed to go. I can still go into flashback, okay. She's here. What? Why? Who is she? Okay, that looks like where I probably need to go. Oh God. Why? Why? Why am I in flashback? Oh. Hello. She's gonna be around here, isn't she? What the fuck are you?